Remember TV watching before streaming came along? It felt like all of us could mention a show and someone else would say, "Oh yeah, I saw that episode and liked how blah blah blah." Now you mention a show and someone might say, "Oh, it's on my list." Or someone else might say, "I haven't seen that because I canceled my Hulu account so I could sign back up to Max and finish up this one series. But when I sign back up, I'll make sure I watch it." There's kind of a disconnect now with all the options and subscriptions. So today I want to connect us in a way. I want to share a little more about who listens to this podcast based on those who have written to me and show you that together we are a community and that you are not alone. Don't worry, no names will be used. It is just an overview and appreciation for you. Welcome to Straight Wife Trans Life. I'm Lisa, and I truly appreciate all of you who have taken time to write to me and to listen and share your stories, thoughts, and feedback. Here's a fun fact. I don't do any marketing and I don't look for sponsors. Well, technically, my spouse does mention my podcast in her many online discussions. But one of the reasons I created this podcast is simply to have a place to share relatable pieces of this experience, plus resources I find along the way, because I knew you'd find me. And that might sound like a weird thing to say, but I did. I knew you'd find me because, like me, when someone comes out to you as transgender and you have nowhere else to turn, you start Googling for anyone else out there who might be going through this. It's lonely and really hard at first, and I am glad you found me. Your messages are encouraging and warm, and many of you who have taken time to write share a lot in common. My first message came after a few of my first episodes from a woman on the East Coast, and we are still in touch. She said, "I've thought about ways I could share mine and my partner's journey with others. Every journey is different, but you're definitely not alone. Thank you for your courage and thoughtfulness." And from there, more came in and continue every month. A woman wrote to me that it didn't work out with her spouse and she was moving to Australia, but that the podcast was helpful. And it was a difficult time for her because she had been married for close to 30 years. A lot of you have been married over 25 years, and a lot of you have been married just over a few years and have kids. In fact, most of you have kids, either young or grown. And this may surprise you, but several husbands who are in the process of transitioning have written to me that they are trying to find ways to help their wives through this. These are such loving spouses who remind me of my spouse. You wish this wasn't happening. You truly love your wives. Several of you have kids but just can't stop this from happening. And now I'm lucky enough to be friends or acquaintances with several of these wives. Another listener wrote to me and said she is the parent of a grown transgender woman, and did I know of any support groups for other parents of grown transgender kids? And I searched. I really tried to find resources for her, and most support groups I found are for parents of younger kids. If anyone knows a support group for parents of transgender adults, please share and I'll add it to my resource list. Another listener shared that she personally doesn't have a transgender spouse, but she is an ally and has transgender friends. And I love that. It's really nice that people listen, for different reasons. And speaking of friends, I do have several friends who listen to the podcast and share that they learned something new that they didn't know about my spouse or me or transgender people. So a big thank you to friends who listen. Thanks for being part of several episodes. I should say family and friends. Thanks for letting me talk about you, even if you didn't know it. So no names, but you know who you are, and I'm very grateful. And another touching moment that technically wasn't from someone who wrote to me is when my son's teacher from an earlier grade told me that she listened and really liked the episodes where I interviewed my spouse. I had no idea she listened. It made my day. Now, geographically, all of you are spread out quite a bit. A few of you are in different parts of Texas, which surprised me that there were several people from Texas. Several of you are spread across the East Coast down to Florida, and a few of you are in Europe or Australia. And for the listeners who are transitioning, not all of you have fully come out as transgender and don't plan to either. You have in common that your spouses are not okay with the full transition and you would rather find small ways to feel feminine versus lose your spouse. But I love that you've written to me and told me that you find the podcast encouraging. And a beautiful laugh out loud message came from a lovely, very funny, all heart transgender woman in Georgia who is happily married to someone she came out to before they married. They knew each other as kids, then her future spouse moved away before they reconnected as adults. A beautiful story of true love, and it was just such a pleasure getting to know her. One of the most positive outcomes for my spouse transitioning has been receiving your messages and becoming friends or acquaintances with others going through this. And you listeners have this in common. You are loving, you have empathy, you are doing your best to figure things out, whether you are a spouse or you are going through a transition, and you are doing your best to support people you love or to understand this world of transition better. You are figuring it all out as you go, like me, and sometimes that means you don't stay together, and sometimes you do. Whatever the outcome, you are all smart, articulate, interesting, and kind. Until next time, sending you a big ol' virtual hug.